I guess every story about family drama starts with everything was fine until. Well, my story isn't any different. Everything really was fine until I turned 11. I'm Tasha, and back then, I lived with my parents in a cozy 2-story house. It wasn't anything fancy, but it was home. Mom and Dad seemed happy enough, at least to my kid eyes. The divorce came as a surprise, even though it was peaceful. No screaming, no fighting over furniture, nothing like what my friend Jenny went through when her parents split up. Dad just moved out one day, taking his tools and clothes with him. He hugged me tight and said, "I'll always be here for you, princess." Mom handled it well at first. When Dad's alimony checks came in, she'd roll her eyes and mutter under her breath about how it wasn't enough, but that was about it. I spent weekends with Dad at his small apartment above the auto repair shop he was trying to get off the ground. The place always smelled like motor oil and coffee, but I loved it. Then, about a year after the divorce, Mom met Richard. He had 2 daughters, Sarah and Emma, both a couple years younger than me. When Mom told me about their engagement, her eyes lit up like Christmas lights. "Just think about it, honey," she gushed, holding my hands in hers. "You'll have sisters. We'll be a proper family again. Richard is such a wonderful man, and his girls are so sweet. You'll love having siblings." I remember nodding eagerly, caught up in her excitement. I'd always wanted sisters, and the way Mom described them made it sound like a fairy tale coming true. She spent hours talking about our future life together, painting pictures of family game nights and sister bonding sessions. The wedding was small but nice. I wore a pale blue dress and carried a basket of flowers. Sarah and Emma wore matching pink dresses and kept whispering and giggling together during the ceremony. I tried to catch their eyes, hoping they'd include me in their secret jokes, but they just turned away. When they moved in, I was so excited I could barely sleep the night before. I'd cleaned my room, made space in the bathroom cabinet for their things, and even put together welcome cards for each of them. Mom helped me arrange flowers in their rooms. "See? You're already being such a good sister," she said, kissing my forehead. If only I'd known then what was coming. Maybe I would have fought harder to keep things the way they were. Maybe I would have told Dad how I really felt about Mom remarrying. But I was 11, and I believed in fairy tales about happy blended families. It took exactly 3 days for my fairy tale to turn into a nightmare. On the 4th morning after they moved in, I woke up early as usual to get ready for school. But when I tried to go into the bathroom, the door was locked. "Just a minute," Sarah called out in a sing-song voice. That minute turned into 45. I kept knocking, telling them I needed to get ready for school, but all I heard was giggling and the hairdryer running. When they finally came out, both Sarah and Emma were perfectly groomed, wearing matching outfits. "Beauty takes time," Emma smirked as they passed me. "You should know that." "Oh wait, maybe you don't." I barely had time to brush my teeth before the school bus came. That became our new morning routine, them hogging the bathroom while I waited, usually ending up being late or rushing. But the bathroom was just the beginning. At dinner that night, I went to sit in my usual spot next to Mom, but Sarah had already taken it. When I opened my mouth to protest, Mom cut me off. "Tasha, honey, why don't you sit over there?" She pointed to the chair furthest from her, next to the edge of the table. "It's just a chair, don't make a fuss." I watched as Mom served Sarah and Emma first, cutting their meat into perfect pieces, asking if they wanted more juice, fussing over them like she used to fuss over me. Richard beamed at the scene, while I picked at my food in silence. Things got worse when Sarah spotted my collection of hair accessories, the ones Mom and I had bought together during our weekly shopping trips. "Oh my God, Emma, look at these," Sarah exclaimed, pulling out my favorite butterfly clips. "They'd look so much better on us." "Those are mine," I said, trying to take them back. "Girls should share," Mom said firmly. "Tasha, don't be greedy. Sarah and Emma are your sisters now." After that, Sarah and Emma started calling me Greedy Tasha whenever adults weren't listening. But that wasn't enough for them. My textbooks would mysteriously end up with torn pages. My clothes would get accidentally stained with nail polish. My homework would vanish, only to reappear crumpled in the trash. Every time I tried to tell Mom, she'd shake her head disapprovingly. "Tasha, stop trying to get attention. I know this adjustment is hard, but making up stories about your sisters isn't the way to handle it." "They're not my sisters," I finally snapped one day after finding my favorite sweater with a huge hole in it. That earned me a lecture from both Mom and Richard about family and gratitude. But the final blow came a week later when Mom announced she was reorganizing the bedrooms. "Sarah and Emma need more space for their things," she explained, not quite meeting my eyes. "Your room has better closets, so they'll take that one. We've already moved your stuff to the small room next to the laundry." The small room was basically a glorified closet with a window. It barely fit my bed and dresser. When I saw all my things crammed into that tiny space, something inside me broke a little. This wasn't just about a room, it was about my place in this family, or rather, my lack of one. Richard wasn't content just letting his daughters torment me, he had to join in too. Any little thing I did wrong became proof that I was a difficult child. If I was quiet, I was sulking. If I spoke up, I was being disruptive. I couldn't win. "Just like your father," he'd say, shaking his head whenever I didn't meet his impossible standards. "Always causing problems. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, does it?" The funny thing was, Dad was actually doing pretty well with his auto repair business. He specialized in luxury cars, and while it was tough at first, he was slowly building a solid reputation. I never told Richard this, though. Let him think what he wanted. My weekends with Dad became my lifeline. We'd order pizza, watch old movies, and he'd tell me stories about the fancy cars he was working on. Sometimes I'd sit in his office while he did paperwork, just enjoying the peaceful atmosphere. "How are things at home, Princess?" he'd ask occasionally, and I'd always say fine. He had enough on his plate, working long hours to get his business off the ground. The last thing he needed was to worry about me too. The years crawled by. I threw myself into my studies, spending as much time as possible at the library or with friends. Anything to avoid being home. Before I knew it, high school graduation was approaching. I'd applied to several colleges. I got acceptance letters from most of them. I was over the moon, finally, a chance to get away, to start fresh. The day after graduation, I couldn't contain my excitement anymore. We were all sitting at dinner, and I decided to share my news. "I got accepted to several colleges," I announced, pulling out the acceptance letters. "Even got offered some partial scholarships. I really like the business program at." Richard's laugh cut through my words like a knife. Not a genuine laugh, one of those mocking ones that makes your stomach sink. "College?" he sneered. "And who exactly is going to pay for that? Your loser father? The guy who can barely keep his little garage afloat?" I stared at him, the letters suddenly feeling heavy in my hands. "I have scholarships, and I can get loans." "Don't be ridiculous," he interrupted. "We're not co-signing any loans for you. We're saving our money for Sarah and Emma's education." I turned to Mom, desperately hoping she'd stand up for me, defend me, be my mother for once. She just looked down at her plate. "Richard's right, honey," she said softly. "We need to think about the girl's future." Something inside me snapped. All the hurt, all the rejection, all the years of being pushed aside, it all came pouring out at once. "You haven't paid any attention to me in years," I shouted, pushing back from the table. "All you care about is pleasing your precious husband and his perfect daughters. When's the last time you even asked how I was doing? When's the last time you acted like my mother instead of their stepmother?" The silence that followed was deafening. Then came the sharp crack of skin against skin. It took me a moment to realize what had happened, that my mother, my own mother, had slapped me across the face. My cheek stung, but what hurt more was seeing Sarah and Emma's expressions. They were actually smiling, clearly enjoying the show. Richard sat there with a satisfied smirk, like he'd been waiting for this moment. I touched my cheek, feeling the heat radiating from where her hand had struck. Mom just stood there, her hand still raised, her face a mixture of anger and something else. Shock? I didn't stick around to find out. I ran to my tiny room and started throwing things into my suitcase. Clothes, photos, my few remaining precious possessions that Sarah and Emma hadn't ruined. I could hear movement in the house, but no one came to check on me. No one tried to stop me. No one said they were sorry. I made it about a block before the adrenaline wore off and reality hit me. I was 18, with no money, no plan, and nowhere to go. My hands were shaking as I pulled out my phone and called Dad. "Hey princess, what's up?" His cheerful voice almost made me break down right there. Can you come get me?" I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course. Where are you?" 15 minutes later, a sleek black Mercedes pulled up beside me. For a moment, I thought I'd given him the wrong street. There was no way this was my dad's car. But there he was, grinning through the open window. "Like my new ride?" he asked as he got out to help me with my suitcase. "This is yours?" I stared at him in disbelief. "I thought it was a customer's car." He laughed, that warm, familiar laugh I'd grown up with. "Nope, all mine. Bought it last week. Business has been good." Then he noticed my suitcase, and his expression changed. "Tasha, what's going on? Why are you out here with a suitcase?" The whole story came pouring out, the college acceptances, Richard's mockery, Mom's betrayal, the slap. Dad's face grew darker with each word. By the end, he was gripping the steering wheel so tight, his knuckles were white. "I'm going over there right now," he growled, starting to turn the car around. "No, Dad, please don't," I grabbed his arm. "It's not worth it. I just want to leave." He looked at me for a long moment, then nodded. "You're right. Let's go home." Over lunch at his place, he'd learned to cook pretty decent pasta over the years. Dad dropped another bombshell. "Remember that fleet contract I was bidding on? With the luxury car rental company?" He was trying to act casual, but I could see him practically bouncing with excitement. "Well, I got it. Exclusive maintenance contract for their entire fleet. The business is really taking off." I was genuinely happy for him, but I must have looked a bit dejected thinking about my own situation, because he quickly added, "And you know what else? I've been saving money for years, putting aside whatever I could for your college fund. It's not enough for an Ivy League school, but combined with your scholarships." I nearly choked on my pasta. You've been saving for my college?" He reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "Of course I have, princess. Did you really think I'd let Richard be right about me?" For the first time that day, I started crying, but these were happy tears. All those years I'd spent protecting Dad from my problems, and here he'd been quietly planning for my future the whole time. I decided to keep my college plans secret from Mom and her perfect family. Let them think they'd won. I spent that summer living with Dad and working at the Sweet Bean Cafe downtown to save up some extra money. Then one afternoon, the bell above the door chimed, and in walked Sarah and Emma, dressed like they were heading to a fashion show instead of a coffee shop. They settled into a booth in my section, of course they did, and smirked as I approached with my notepad. Well, Sarah drawled, loud enough for nearby customers to hear. "Looks like someone found their true calling." Emma snickered. "Yeah, we just wanted to see how the other half lives, before we head off to college in the fall. Dad's already picked out the perfect schools for us." "Can I take your order?" I kept my voice professional, fighting back a smile. If they only knew. "Oh, you'll probably still be taking orders when we graduate," Sarah continued, examining her manicured nails. "But don't worry, maybe we'll leave you nice tips when we visit home from college." I just smiled and wrote down their complicated, half-CAF, extra hot drink orders. Let them have their moment. I knew where I was headed. That fall, I started college in the neighboring state. I threw myself into my business classes, made new friends, and started building a life that had nothing to do with my past. Mom never called to apologize for the slap or for anything else. I didn't call her either. Dad visited whenever he could, and we talked almost every day. 4 years flew by. I graduated with honors and landed a job at a marketing firm in the same city as my college. Starting salary wasn't huge, but it was enough to rent a small apartment and live comfortably. I worked hard, stayed late, took on extra projects. My bosses noticed. The promotions started coming. First junior manager, then senior manager, then team leader. Each one came with a nice bump in pay. I was able to start saving serious money for the first time in my life. Then one day, Dad showed up at my apartment with a massive grin on his face. His business had expanded to 3 locations, and he'd just signed contracts with 2 more luxury car rental companies. "I want you to have this," he said, pulling out a cashier's check. The amount made me dizzy. "It's for a down payment on your own place. You've worked so hard, princess. You deserve this." 2 months later, I was moving into my own apartment, not rented, owned. More raises came. More promotions. I started thinking about buying a house, something with a garden maybe, in one of those quiet neighborhoods outside the city. Then one evening, my phone rang. Unknown number. "Tasha?" The voice was hesitant, familiar in a way that made my stomach clench. It's Mom. "I think it's time we talked. I want to try to fix things between us." "Okay," I heard myself say. "Let's talk." We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown, neutral territory. When Mom walked in, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older, tired, nothing like the confident woman who had chosen her new family over me years ago. "You look wonderful," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. Her hands were shaking slightly as she arranged her napkin. We made awkward small talk about the weather and my job until the waitress brought our coffee. Then Mom took a deep breath and the real story came out. "I left Richard," she said, staring into her cup. "Or rather, he left me. After we mortgaged the house to pay for the girls' college." I waited, letting her continue at her own pace. "They promised they'd help with the payments once they graduated." She laughed bitterly. "But when the time came, they had excuses. Always excuses. The job market was tough, they needed to focus on their careers, they had their own expenses." She wiped her eyes with a trembling hand. "We lost the house. All those years of payments, gone. And Richard, he just packed up and moved in with Sarah. Said he couldn't handle the financial stress anymore." "Mom," I started, but she held up her hand. "Please, let me finish. I was wrong, Tasha. I chose them over you. I let them hurt you. I hurt you. And I am so sorry." The tears in her eyes were real. The tremor in her voice was real. And despite everything, despite all the years of pain and rejection, I found myself reaching across the table to take her hand. "I forgive you," I said softly, surprising myself with how much I meant it. The next few days, I couldn't stop thinking about our conversation. About Mom, alone and homeless after giving everything to people who had given nothing back. It felt like karma, in a way, but it didn't make me happy. Instead, I felt a strange mix of sadness and opportunity, a chance to be the bigger person. I called her on a Wednesday evening. "I'd been thinking about buying a house," I said after we exchanged hellos. "Something in the old neighborhood, with a garden maybe. It would be too big for just me, but maybe you'd like to live there?" I took a week off work and flew home to house hunt. Found a beautiful place just outside town, nothing fancy, but solid and welcoming, with a wraparound porch and mature trees in the yard. Mom cried when she saw it. When Dad heard about my decision, I expected him to be upset. Instead, he surprised me. "You've got a bigger heart than most, princess," he said, hugging me tight. "I'm proud of you." The next few months fell into a pleasant routine. I'd fly in for weekend visits, spend time with Dad first, then head over to the new house to see Mom. We were rebuilding our relationship slowly but surely. She seemed happier, more like the mom I remembered from childhood. During one visit, I noticed some unfamiliar things in the house: men's boots by the door, a jacket I didn't recognize hanging in the hallway. "Oh, just a friend visiting," Mom said quickly when I asked. "You know how it is." I didn't think much of it at the time. Maybe I should have. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was just settling into work when my phone lit up with Aunt Carol's number. "Tasha, honey," she said, her voice hesitant. "There's something you need to know. It's about your mother. Well, Richard's living in the house. Him and his daughters. They moved in months ago." "That's impossible," I said. "I was just there 2 weeks ago." "It was just Mom." "Because she makes them leave before you visit," Aunt Carol said gently. "They clear out every time you're scheduled to come. I found out from Marie next door. She's been watching them come and go for months now." Suddenly, those friends' belongings I'd seen made terrible sense. The boots, the jacket. The way Mom had brushed off my questions. I thanked her, hung up, and booked the first flight home. No warning, no calls to Mom. Just grabbed my laptop, I could work remotely, and headed to the airport. It was Wednesday afternoon when I pulled up to the house in my rental car. Richard's old pickup was in the driveway, the same one he'd had all those years ago. My key turned smoothly in the lock. The scene in the kitchen could have been pulled straight from my teenage years. Mom at the stove, wearing her favorite apron, fussing over a pot of something that smelled like Richard's favorite beef stew. Sarah and Emma at the kitchen table, looking exactly like their old entitled selves, just older. Richard in his usual chair, reading the newspaper. Mom saw me first. The wooden spoon she was holding clattered to the floor. "Tasha," her face went white. "I wasn't expecting you until Saturday." "Clearly," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "What are they doing here?" "We live here now," Sarah announced with a smirk. "Mom invited us." She realized family should stick together. "Family?" I turned to Mom, who was nervously wiping her hands on her apron. "After everything they did to you? After they cost you your house?" "They apologized," Mom said weakly. "They're trying to make things right. Richard's changed, the girls have changed." "Get them out," I cut her off. "Now. This is my house, and I want them gone." "No." Mom straightened up, and I saw that familiar stubborn look cross her face. "I love them, and I want them here." "Love them?" I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "They drove you into debt. They cost you your house. Have you forgotten how they treated me? How they bullied me every single day? How they destroyed my things, stole my room, made my life hell?" "That was years ago," Mom waved her hand dismissively. "They were just children then." "And what about now?" I demanded. "They used you for college money and abandoned you. Richard left you when things got tough. How can you just forgive that?" "Because they're family," Mom insisted, her chin lifting stubbornly. "They made mistakes, but they're sorry now." Sarah and Emma exchanged smug looks. Richard just sat there with that same self-satisfied smile I remembered from my childhood. "Fine," I said, my voice ice cold. "Then I'm giving you a choice, Mom. Right now. Them or me." The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. I watched Mom's face, searching for any sign of the mother I used to know, the one who used to braid my hair and kiss my scraped knees and tell me I could be anything I wanted to be. "I choose them," she said finally. "We're happy together, Tasha. Why can't you just accept that?" Something inside me hardened permanently. "You have 2 days to get out of my house. All of you. You can't do this." Mom's voice rose to a shriek. "I'm your mother. You can't throw me out." "Watch me." I turned and walked out, their voices following me down the driveway. 2 days later, I returned. Nothing had changed. Their cars were still in the driveway, and when I walked in, they were all sitting in the living room like they owned the place. "I told you to leave," I said. Mom actually laughed. "And I told you, you can't throw me out. I'm your mother." "Fine." I pulled out my phone and dialed 911. "Then I'll let the police explain it to you." "You wouldn't dare." Richard started to rise from his chair. "Hello? Yes, I need assistance removing unauthorized occupants from my property." I stated my address clearly, maintaining eye contact with Mom the whole time. What followed was ugly. The police arrived within minutes. Mom screamed and cried as the officers explained that yes, I could evict them, and no, she had no legal right to stay. Richard turned purple with rage, calling me every name he could think of. Sarah and Emma joined in, their true colors showing through their designer clothes and fake smiles. "You ungrateful bitch," Mom shrieked as the police escorted them out. "After everything I've done for you." "Everything you've done for me?" I watched them load their belongings into their cars. "Name one thing, Mom. Just one thing you've done for me since the day you married him." She had no answer for that. "Aunt Carol keeps me updated, though I never ask." They're living in a small apartment across town, struggling to make rent. Richard still can't hold down a job. Sarah and Emma never visit, too busy with their own lives to care about the mother who sacrificed everything for them. Sometimes Mom calls late at night, but I never answer. The house sits empty most of the time. I'm thinking about selling it, maybe buying something closer to the city where I live now. Something smaller, cozier. Something that doesn't hold any echoes of the past.
Hello, today, I want to share a story from my life about how I almost lost $75,000 to my thieving and manipulative in-laws. Thankfully, I knew my way around and managed to get it back. But first, let me introduce myself. I'm Tina, and I'm 38 years old. I'm married to the love of my life, Joe. Joe and I met back in college. We had the same elective and got paired together for a project. With every meeting, we realized how much we liked each other. After the project, we continued to hang out and soon began dating. Our relationship was very smooth. We had similar personalities and meshed well together. One of our biggest shared values was our love for our families, which is why about 6 months into dating, we introduced each other to our parents. Joe's meeting with my parents went well, but meeting his parents wasn't the best. Joe's parents, Carl and Julia, were very closed off. They didn't try to get to know me or show any interest in what I was saying. By the end of dinner, I was beyond embarrassed. Imagine telling a joke and having no one laugh, just staring at you blankly. That's exactly what the entire dinner was like. When Joe dropped me off at my place, he'd apologized for his parents' behavior. He explained that they were apprehensive about him dating in college because they wanted him to focus on his studies. I felt like that was a valid reason, so I let it go. About 3 years after we graduated, Joe and I got married. We waited until we were financially stable and settled to tie the knot, which was a great decision because being able to spend without worrying about the future is a blissful form of security. After we got married, I noticed a change in Julia and Carl's attitudes toward us. They had been cold to me up until the wedding when I told them where I worked during a conversation. I held a good position at a well-recognized bank, which must have piqued their interest. Suddenly, they were a little more open. However, this openness came with something ugly. They would make crude remarks at my expense. Whenever Joe or I said anything about it, they brushed it off, telling us to lighten up because they were only joking. Joe and I aren't very confrontational, so we just stuck with it. Then came the requests for money. I come from a low middle-income family, so I knew what struggling looked like. The only people who helped my family were other family members, so when my family asked for money, I never said no. It started innocently with Julia needing money to pay off a ticket. She hadn't brought enough money and asked me to bring some over. I helped her out and never asked to be paid back, and she never made an effort to repay me either. Then they started purposely forgetting their wallets at home or not bringing enough money whenever we went out, expecting Joe or me to cover for them. Eventually, they straight up asked us for money. We were spending more money on them than on ourselves, so Joe and I sat down to discuss things. You know I love your parents, but we can't keep giving them money and covering for them like this, I said. Yeah, I wouldn't have any issue if they weren't working individuals who make more money than us, Joe agreed. I just don't know how to bring it up. It feels wrong. I feel the same, but we can put that money to better use, like buying a house, I suggested. You want to buy a house? Joe asked, surprised. Yes, I've always wanted to own a house, I replied. Me too, Joe said. We'll have to stop enabling my parents and live frugally to save quickly, but it will be worth it. Oh my God, are we doing this? I exclaimed. Absolutely. It's been a dream of mine to own a house with you, Joe said. Joe and I started saving the next month, putting aside more than half of our pay towards savings. It was initially a struggle because we were used to certain comforts, but we quickly adapted. We also had to talk to Carl and Julia about not giving them money anymore. Needless to say, they were not happy. Julia bluntly asked Joe if I was the reason for this change. Joe told her it was a joint decision and explained our plans to buy a house, hoping it would get them off our backs, and it worked like a charm. However, they did stop contacting us as much. Joe and I didn't let Carl and Julia's lack of contact bother us. We focused on our work and saving as much as we could. Of course, sometimes we dipped into our savings to finance something big, but overall, we stayed committed to our goal. We got right back on track with our savings and didn't let that setback get us down. In about 2 years, we had saved up around $76,000 in our joint account. We were overjoyed and shocked by how well we had done. One weekend, Joe had been avoiding me all day. I was concerned that something was up, but every time I tried to talk to him, he went silent or said it was nothing and walked away. I gave him the entire day, but by evening, I sat him down for a serious talk. Okay, I've given you time to figure out what's wrong. You need to tell me, I said. There's nothing wrong, Joe replied, trying to deflect. I'm going to stop you right there. Both you and I know that's a lie. Spill. Please don't be mad at me, he hesitated. What's wrong? I did something really bad. Oh no, what did you do? It's okay, you can tell me. I won't get mad. I gave my parents the money we had been saving up for our new house. What? Why? They called me yesterday morning and said they had a lot of medical bills and other huge debts. They made me feel guilty about having so much money, so I gave it to them. I wanted to help them out, you know. Oh, sweetheart. I don't know how to feel about that, but if you stand by your decision to help your family, who am I to say anything? Well, that's the thing. I really regret my decision. Why? I was scrolling through Facebook this morning before you woke up and saw this post my dad made about them going on a luxury cruise they had always wanted to go on. Here, look. I was panicking. I didn't know what to think. How could Joe do this to us? More importantly, how could Carl and Julia do this? We had been transparent with them about our struggles. Joe had opened up to them a lot about it, and they had given him advice on how to save money. Seeing them openly declare their luxury cruise on social media, thanks to us, felt like a slap in the face. I made it worse for myself by checking our joint account balance. There was just $11,000 left. I stared at the screen in disbelief, my mind blank from shock. All the money we had saved over the past few years was gone. All the years we lived frugally felt wasted. I couldn't be mad at Joe because he truly thought his parents were in serious need, but seeing them spend it on a luxury vacation was something I couldn't stand. Joe looked miserable, and while I couldn't be mad at him, I also knew I couldn't easily let this go. He knew his parents had a history of tricking family members out of their money. Usually, it was a small enough amount to forgive, but $75,000 was too much. I grabbed my keys and drove to his parents' place. I knew they wouldn't give up without a fight, but I was determined to get our money back. Once I parked in their driveway, I took a couple of seconds to steel myself for the confrontation. I walked up to their door and rang the bell. Julia answered. Oh, what are you doing here? Who is it, honey? Carl called from inside. It's just Tina, Julia replied. What's she doing here? Just ask her. Tina, be quick. We don't have time for you. Because you're too busy spending our money. I told you she'd be here for the money, Carl said, approaching the door. Look, Joe gave it to us fair and square. Only because you tricked him. We did not. Yes, you did. You lied about having to pay off huge medical bills. It wasn't a lie. We really did have a lot of debt, but we cleared it all out. I'm glad we could help. Now fork over the rest of the money. It was given to us, so we get to decide what to do with it. Yeah, could you do us a favor and not disturb us again? Thanks. With that, Julia shut the door in my face. I was stunned. I tried ringing the doorbell again and even banged on the door, but they ignored me. I sat back in my car, fuming. I started the car, reversed out of their driveway, and drove around until my anger calmed a little. The audacity that Carl and Julia had was shocking. How could they not feel bad for robbing their own child by tricking him? I remembered how miserable Joe had looked when I left, so I drove back home. By the time I got back, a good couple of hours had passed, and my phone had died pretty much as soon as I had left the house earlier. When I walked into the house, I saw Joe pacing back and forth in the living room, looking beyond worried. He didn't notice me, so I cleared my throat to get his attention. He looked up in surprise before running up to me and hugging me really tight. "Oh my God, thank God you're safe." "I was so worried," he said. "Why?" I asked, taken aback by his intense relief. "You disappeared 4 hours ago and your phone was unreachable. You didn't respond to any of my texts either. How could I not have been worried?" Okay, that was bad of me. I'm really sorry." "It's okay. I'm just glad you're safe. Where did you go, though?" "Your parents' house." "My parents? Why?" "To ask them about giving us our money back." "Oh, Tina, I'm so sorry." "Shush. I get where you were coming from, but you need to have your wits about you." "Yeah, I will. Did they give you the money back?" "Nope." "Oh yeah, remind me why this isn't making you freak out." "Because I have a plan to make them give back our money." "Is there any way I could help?" "Oh yeah, definitely. This plan rides on your help." Joe had a friend who worked with the income tax department, and I worked for the bank where Carl and Julia had their accounts. All I needed was a letter from Joe's friend to freeze their accounts. I would love to see how long Carl and Julia would stay away from me after they could no longer use their money. Joe's friend owed him a huge favor because Joe had used his connections to help his friend get his current job. Joe called him up and explained the whole situation. His friend was more than ready to provide a letter ordering the freezing of Carl and Julia's account. I got on a call with him the next day at work and provided him with all the necessary details about Joe's parents' accounts. We went over the letter together, and he told me that I would get it in a week. That timing was perfect because it was right before Carl and Julia were set to go on their cruise. Since their cruise was all expenses paid, they probably wouldn't even notice that their accounts were frozen. With that extra time, I could also work on filing a case against them for lying and stealing from us. I knew that Carl and Julia would contact me when they realized their accounts were frozen. I would use the case as leverage to get them to pay me back in full. A week later, Carl and Julia left for their cruise. They made sure to send Joe a picture of them on the ship, rubbing salt in the wound. Joe felt beyond upset when he saw the picture, and if I'm being honest, it made my blood boil too. But I knew this would just be further proof of their crime when I filed the case. When they finally got back, Joe and I felt our excitement creep up every day as we waited for a phone call from his parents. It took about a week before they called. "Hi, sweetheart." Julia's voice was overly sweet. "Sweetheart." Joe echoed, confused. "Did you hit your head somewhere?" "Don't be silly, sweetie. Of course I didn't. Although, yes, there it is. What's wrong?" "Don't be rude, but yes, Carl and I have a bit of a problem." "And why do I help you out? Did you guys ask me not to disturb you?" Joe's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Tina, please," Julia begged. "It's a matter of our survival. Our bank account is frozen for some reason. And since you work at our bank, could you look into it for us?" "I'll think about it. Please, we're begging you to somehow unfreeze our accounts. We don't have much cash on us to last us through the week." "Oof, that's tough. Anyways, I'll see what I can do." I hung up the call, feeling a tingle of sick satisfaction from Julia and Carl's desperation. But my plan wasn't done yet. I was going to string them along for a while before revealing the truth. I wanted them to feel the anxiety and betrayal I had felt. The next week, Joe mostly ignored their calls. When he did pick up, they asked for money, but he always coldly said no and claimed he was busy. I carried on as usual with my week. Julia called me every day to check if I had any information on how to unfreeze their account. With each passing day, I sensed their panic rising. Somehow, they managed to survive another week. By the second week, I began to ignore their calls altogether. only answering occasionally to tell them I couldn't talk at the moment. It was satisfying to play with them as they had played with us. But eventually, I got bored of the games. So I told them I had information for them. They eagerly invited Joe and me over to dinner at their place. All of their rudeness and mean attitude were absent. Suddenly, they were super nice to me, even prioritizing me instead of ignoring me like usual. Joe and I struggled to contain our laughter at their pathetic attempt to seem nice. After dinner, I pulled out a folder containing the information from my bag and set it on the table. Julia and Carl looked at me nervously. "Oh, what did you find out, dear?" Julia asked. "Yeah, will we be able to get our account back?" Carl added. "I don't think so, at least not for a couple of months," I replied. "Wait, what? Why?" Julia exclaimed. "The funny thing is, I completely forgot I had done this when you were on your cruise," I said with a smirk. "What are you talking about?" Carl demanded. "I had your account frozen," I revealed. "What? Are you mad? Why would you do that?" Julia shouted. "That's what you get for manipulating your son and stealing from us," I said calmly. "You're a monster," Carl yelled. "No, you guys are the monsters. You knew just how much owning the house meant to Joe. You knew how hard he worked to earn that money. You knew all the sacrifices we made, yet you stole from us. How many times do I have to tell you that we did not lie? Get our account unfrozen now," Julia demanded. "You did lie. Just because you embellished the lie doesn't take away the fact that it was still a lie. Your account will remain frozen until you pay us back in full," I insisted. "We'll take you to court," Carl threatened. "I dare you to. I've already filed a case against you. If you don't pay us back in full, I'll push for the case, and then you'll have to do more than just pay me," I retorted. "How can you do this to your own family?" Julia pleaded. "Oh, please, Julia, don't even try. We're giving you guys a month to figure it out and give us the money," I said firmly. With that, I grabbed Joe's arm and we left. As soon as we sat in the car, we burst out laughing. We had done it. The look of shock and betrayal on Julia and Carl's faces was so worth it. They would know never to mess with us again. Joe tried to apologize to me again, but I assured him that it was all okay. We had ensured we'd get our money back and, in the process, given his parents a taste of their own medicine. I don't know how or where they got the money, but Carl and Julia paid us back a week after that dinner. I was beyond happy. Julia texted me, politely asking me to unfreeze their account, which I gladly did the next day at work. Joe and I spent the next few weeks finalizing our new house and moving in. We went low contact with Julia and Carl. We got fooled once, and it would be embarrassing if we let them fool us again. We're both people who value family and tend to have a very soft spot for them. Julia and Carl knew this, which is why we couldn't let them use it to their advantage again. They also never actually apologized for what they did, so we didn't want to be involved with them until they did. Joe and I are living happily in our beautiful home. We're even planning to start a family. At one point in my life, I really thought that I had to resign to my fate, but this experience taught me that if you take things into your own hands, life will go your way. Hey there, I'm Clara, and I've got quite a story for you. My in-laws thought they had the perfect prank up their sleeves. Little did they know that their mischievous plan was about to take an unexpected turn. My husband Tyler and I have been together for a while now. We met in college and instantly clicked, becoming inseparable. His infectious laughter and caring nature drew me in, and I couldn't help but fall head over heels for him. Our relationship blossomed, filled with shared dreams and countless memories. However, his family has some interesting traditions. When Tyler first told me about their quirky habit of playing practical jokes, I found it amusing. Coming from a more reserved family, I was curious to experience the wild side of his relatives. But I soon realized that their pranks were not just harmless fun. They were quite hurtful. Instead of simple jokes between family members, their pranks were elaborate and often made people feel embarrassed or humiliated. Seeing how they hurt each other made me uneasy, and I didn't want to become the target of their unkind humor. The first time I met them, they played a humiliating prank on me. Tyler's family planned a picnic every couple of months where his parents and siblings, along with their families, would meet up and enjoy each other's company. Tyler decided it was the perfect time to introduce me to his family. I was both excited and nervous because I desperately wanted them to like and accept me. Initially, it seemed like a fun and innocent gathering, but I had no idea about the cruel prank they had prepared for me. Kenneth, Tyler's dad pretended to spill his drink on me, making it look like an accident. The drink was sticky, so I needed to change my clothes to clean up the mess. Sharon, Tyler's mom, offered me spare clothes from their car, which she got from the trunk. She handed me a bag, and I headed to the public restroom in the park to change. But when I opened the bag, my heart sank. Instead of regular clothes, there was a huge clown costume inside. It hit me like a wave of disbelief. They had planned to embarrass and humiliate me all along. I felt a mix of shock, hurt, and shame wash over me. The mere thought of walking outside in a clown costume turned my face red with embarrassment. How could they go to such lengths to make me a target for their laughter? Reluctantly, I put on the oversized clown costume, feeling exposed and vulnerable. As I walked back to the picnic area, Tyler's family burst into loud laughter. Their mocking laughter filled the air, intensifying my embarrassment. All I wanted was to disappear at that moment. The stares and whispers from other people in the park only made me feel worse, adding to the weight of their cruel prank. It was really hard to bear their laughter and teasing, especially because I had wanted them to accept and welcome me. Instead, they seemed to enjoy seeing me embarrassed, using it as a chance to make fun of me. I felt a mix of sadness and anger, wondering how they could find happiness in hurting me so much. It was utterly mortifying, and I felt like a fool. The emotions I experienced ranged from shock to embarrassment to anger. Tyler saw the look of pain and humiliation on my face as I returned to the picnic area wearing that silly outfit. He was furious at his family. "What the hell were you guys thinking? How could you do this to Clara? I told you that there would be no playing pranks on her. At least not until she's comfortable with it." "Oh, come on, Tyler. It was all good fun. We didn't mean any harm. This is who we are." "Harm? Look at her. She's humiliated. I know the rest of us are okay with these pranks, but she isn't, and you needed to respect that. It's the one thing I asked of you guys." "Tyler, calm down. It was just a silly costume. We didn't mean for her to be so upset." "Just a silly costume? Can't you see how hurt she is? You know how important she is to me, Mom. I won't tolerate this mistreatment." "Tyler, we didn't realize it would upset her this much. We're sorry." "Sorry isn't enough. You've broken your promise. If this ever happens again, I'm serious, I will cut ties with both of you. I won't let anyone treat Clara like this." "Tyler, please, we didn't mean to hurt her. We'll make sure it doesn't happen again. I hope you mean it. I won't let anyone disrespect the person I love. I expect better from both of you." Tyler profusely apologized to me for his family's behavior, and it was a real turning point. It showed me that our relationship was more important to him than their warped sense of humor. His kind words and understanding were like a balm for my hurting soul, showing me that he was always there for me. Sadly, that incident strained my relationship with my in-laws. Kenneth and Sharon, my mother and father-in-law, took every opportunity to make subtle jabs at me, always referring to me as a wasp or a party pooper. Initially, their words hurt me, but I learned to ignore them and focus on building a strong bond with Tyler. A few months after Tyler's bold promise, he proposed to me, and we decided to tie the knot. The wedding was a dream come true, and the love between us was palpable. We were ecstatic to start this new chapter together. Tyler's parents, Kenneth and Sharon, surprised us with an invitation to dinner at one of my favorite high-end restaurants. They claimed it was to welcome me into their lives and family. Initially, I was very skeptical about accepting their invitation. Sensing my apprehension, Kenneth texted me an apology for the way they had been treating me and promised me that their invitation was a gesture of their acceptance of me. I reluctantly accepted the invitation but couldn't shake off the feeling that something was off. After all, I had known them long enough to suspect their ulterior motives. Luckily, I had an ace up my sleeve. The restaurant they chose happened to be owned by my close friend, Connor. Connor and I had a special bond that went beyond friendship. He was like a brother to me, always there when I needed him. Our relationship was built on years of shared memories and unconditional support. We grew up together in the same town and became best friends in high school. We had lost contact when we went off to college but reconnected a couple of years ago. We rebuilt our friendship, and before I knew it, I was wiping away tears of joy and pride at Connor's wedding. Connor was someone I could always rely on, no matter the circumstances. He had a kind and caring nature that made me feel safe and understood. We shared countless laughs, wiped away each other's tears, and celebrated life's triumphs together. Connor was there for me during my ups and downs, offering a listening ear and wise advice. He became an integral part of my life. He even bestowed me with the honor of being named the godmother to his first child. It truly was an understatement to say that Connor was just a close friend. He was more like family to me. Hey Connor, I need to talk to you about something. Hey sure, what's up? So, you know my in-laws, right? Yeah, I remember meeting them. What's going on? Well, they're planning a party for me at your restaurant, but here's the thing, they love playing humiliating pranks on people. The first time I met them, they embarrassed me big time. Really? That's not cool at all. I'm sorry you had to go through that. Thanks, it was awful. But since then, Tyler threatened them, and they haven't tried anything on me again. But I'm worried they might pull something at this party. Don't worry, I've got your back. If they try anything funny, I'll be ready with a backup plan to save you from any embarrassment. Oh, thank you so much. I knew I could count on you. It means a lot to have someone on my side. Of course, you're part of our extended family here. We won't let anyone humiliate you. Just trust me, and we'll make sure you have a great time at the party. I appreciate that. You're amazing. You better tell my kids that I'm amazing when they're a little more grown up. Shut up. I'll need some time to think about it. After my conversation with Connor, a wave of relief washed over me. I felt a glimmer of excitement and anticipation for the party, no longer consumed by fear. Connor's support brought me a renewed sense of confidence, reminding me that I had allies in this battle against humiliation. A few days before the party, I called Sharon to remind her about the importance of accurate reservations. Hey Sharon, I wanted to talk to you about the party at the restaurant. I just wanted to remind you about the importance of accurate reservations. Oh, Clara, I've got it covered. You don't need to worry about it. I know you're busy with the party preparations, but the restaurant has some strict policies, and I want to make sure everything goes smoothly. Are you implying that I can't handle it? I've organized plenty of events before, you know. Oh no, I didn't mean it like that. I just wanted to avoid any hiccups and make sure everything is perfect. Well, trust me, Clara, I've taken care of the reservations and everything will be in order. You can count on me. I felt a mix of relief and lingering doubt. While Sharon assured me that everything was under control, a part of me couldn't help but worry. I hoped that she had truly taken care of the reservations and that the party would go smoothly as planned. The day of the party arrived and Tyler and I stepped into the restaurant. We were greeted warmly at the reception. The employees of the restaurant had quickly become our friends, thanks to how often we frequented Connor's restaurant. A waiter escorted us to our table, but as soon as we reached it, I noticed something was off. There was one seat missing. Panic rose within me as I asked about my seat, only to be met with uproarious laughter from Tyler's family. Tyler, clearly furious with his family, confronted them. I cannot believe you guys. This is completely out of line. You know the restaurant's policies, and yet you deliberately pulled that prank. It's not a joke when it hurts someone. Oh, come on, Tyler, lighten up. It was just a harmless prank. No, Dad, it wasn't harmless. It's humiliating, and it's not okay. You promised you wouldn't do anything like this again. Maybe it will be a real family dinner now. I don't see why we have to invite someone who can't take a joke into our family. Mom, that's not fair. Clara is my wife, and I won't tolerate anyone disrespecting her. How do you propose to fix this prank of yours? I couldn't believe they would dismiss my feelings so easily, labeling it as a joke. It hurt to think that they didn't see the impact of their actions and didn't fully support our relationship. I longed for their understanding and acceptance, but their comments only deepened my sense of hurt and disappointment. Just when tension was about to boil over, Connor walked in. Oh, look who's here. Hey Clara, it's great to see you. How are you doing? Oh my God, hi Connor. It's been a while since we saw each other. I'm doing well, thank you. Tyler's family decided to throw me a party to welcome me into their family. Excellent. By the way, everyone, I'm Connor, the owner of this restaurant. Now let's get this celebration started. Oh, wait a minute, there seems to be a missing seat at this table. What happened? Oh, that's their prank on me. They love playing tricks. I know you're very strict about seating, but do you think there's any way you can make an exception for me? I'm afraid not. If I did this for you, I'd have to do it for everyone. But don't worry, I've got it covered. We have an empty seat in our VIP lounge. How would you and Tyler like to spend the evening there? You have a fantastic view and a comfortable spot. Why does she get special treatment? This is supposed to be a joke. There's no need for all this fuss. Well, it's important to make sure our guests feel comfortable and valued, and I think it's essential to respect everyone's feelings. Anyway, Clara, your meal along with all the drinks for you and Tyler tonight are on the house. Enjoy the evening. Thank you so much, Connor. At that moment, my gratitude towards Connor knew no bounds. Having Connor there with us brought a sense of calm and made me feel safe. He took us to the VIP area, protecting us from the chaos caused by Tyler's family. They loudly protested Connor giving us special treatment, but Connor simply motioned to one of the wait staff to take care of their table, and they immediately quieted down. I thanked Connor a lot for standing up for me and keeping me from feeling even more embarrassed. At that moment, Tyler's support meant everything to me. His actions showed his true character and how much he wanted to keep me safe. He didn't let his family's teasing get in the way. Instead, he chose to protect me and put our well-being first. It showed how deep his love was and how strong our bond had become. Sitting in the VIP area, surrounded by safety and support, I felt incredibly grateful for both Connor and Tyler. Their unwavering presence reminded me that I wasn't alone in this journey. As Tyler and I ordered our meal and drinks, we finally began to settle down to enjoy the night. However, the night was not yet ready to be calm for us. Hey guys, what do you want? Please let us sit with you. We're all here for Clara's party after all. No, I don't think that's a good idea. We're fine on our own. Well then, what if we apologize? We're family and family doesn't treat each other this way. Yeah, we want to make things right. Can't we all just move past this? Are you kidding? You didn't want her in the family before, and now you suddenly do? Or is it because you want to sit in a fancier place and get a free meal? You guys are a joke. Leave us alone. Tyler, we're sorry. We didn't mean it like that. We were just joking. Joking? It didn't feel like a joke when you humiliated me. Your actions spoke louder than words. Enough. We don't want to hear it. Just go. Tyler, please. No, Mom. It's time you both understand the consequences of your actions. Leave now. Connor, sensing the commotion, intervened and kindly requested Kenneth and Sharon to leave our booth. When they refused, he threatened to call the police. Finally, they slinked away and headed towards their table. However, Connor followed them and asked them to leave his restaurant, citing complaints from other customers about their unruly behavior. Having no choice, they quietly left the restaurant with their heads down in shame as the entire restaurant witnessed their embarrassing exit. That night, Tyler and I had a blast. We laughed, we ate, we shared a couple of drinks with Connor, relishing in the victory over Tyler's family's prank gone wrong. Tyler and I were bombarded with texts from his family after that night. They were filled with anger and blame, accusing us of overreacting and causing a scene. Their words stung, adding fuel to the fire and deepening the rift between us. It felt like the aftermath of a storm with no calm in sight. Instead of engaging in their negativity, we decided to take a stand. We realized that we didn't need that toxicity in our lives, so we made a firm decision and blocked them, putting an end to their hurtful words and actions. Cutting ties with Tyler's family was a necessary boundary to protect our emotional well-being. We refused to subject ourselves to their constant ridicule and cruelty. It was a liberating decision that allowed us to focus on the love and support we shared and the positive relationships that uplifted us. It was a fitting conclusion to this tumultuous saga, allowing us to move forward with positivity and surround ourselves with love and support. Life moved on, and Tyler and I thrived in our love and unity. Our relationship grew stronger, and we built our own loving family, free from the toxicity of his parents' cruel pranks. Thanks for sticking with me through this roller coaster tale. Remember, sometimes the sweetest victories come from the unexpected allies we find along the way. Don't let anyone's cruel pranks dampen your spirit or break your resolve. Stay strong and true to yourself, and you'll always have the last laugh. My name is Judy, and I'm 33 years old. I don't have a big family, so experiencing such a large event was definitely one of the perks of marrying my husband, Kyle. The music was blasting, and the air was filled with laughter and chatter from Kyle's family. This was the first time I had ever been at a function like this. Unlike me, Kyle comes from a very large family. They were celebrating a family reunion in a grand way with at least 100 people in attendance. It was an opportunity for us to meet distant relatives and enjoy good food. But as fate would have it, the day turned into a nightmare for me. Although this outing was meant to be filled with joy and celebration, it turned sour when I encountered my rude and hostile mother-in-law. She made it her life's mission to disrespect and belittle me, especially because she believed I was unable to conceive. But she couldn't have been more wrong. I just couldn't tell her the truth, at least not yet. My journey to motherhood has been far from easy, filled with medical appointments, emotional roller coasters, and dashed hopes. But what made it even more excruciating was having Hannah, a woman who should be a pillar of support, constantly prodding and mocking my struggles. At the function, she approached me and said, "Judy, my dear, you're still not pregnant. You should really get a move on, You're not getting any younger. Oh wait, you're infertile. What a shame. I really wish my son had married someone who could at least conceive a baby." I was taken aback by her words. How could someone be so blatantly rude and malicious? I felt the blood rushing to my face, unable to believe what I had just heard. I had to ask her to repeat herself. "What did you say?" "You didn't hear me. Must be all this loud music. Hold on for 1 second." As if I wasn't already embarrassed enough, Hannah did the unthinkable. Because this was such a large event, she walked over to the DJ and requested to use his mic. "Attention, attention, everyone," she called out. Everyone started to pay attention, and I felt a deep dread about what was coming next. Some of you might know Judy, Kyle's wife. I wasn't going to do this, but I thought this would be a great teachable moment for her and everyone here. We're all family, right? Seeing that this had bad news written all over it, Kyle, who was somewhere off in the distance, started making his way to the DJ booth. He knew his mother all too well and knew she wasn't going to say anything positive about me. Unfortunately, he was too far away to reach her in time. If you turn your attention towards Judy, you'll see she's not pregnant or carrying an infant. This is honestly shocking, considering she's been married to Kyle for 5 years now. Anyhow, it's not her fault. I guess she is infertile after all. "Mom, that's enough," Kyle shouted. Although Kyle screamed, his unamplified voice was no match for the booming microphone his mother was using. She continued. "Don't worry, Kyle. This is a teachable moment. Judy, I know the truth is hard to hear, but you have to hear it anyway. You are infertile, and as a result, you're wasting everyone's time here. We're all not getting any younger, and I want to see my grandchildren. I think it would be best if you two did something like get a surrogate or a divorce." There I was, my face redder than any of the tomato dishes there, with countless eyes looking my way. "I'm serious, Judy. You should honestly consider doing something about that infertility. It's quite selfish and embarrassing. I want to see my grandchild." Thankfully, she was cut off by Kyle, who had finally reached her. I couldn't move at all. It was like I was frozen. It seemed like 100 pairs of eyes were on me, and I just wanted the earth to open up and swallow me whole. I felt humiliated as everyone stared, although Kyle managed to stop her. The damage was already done. Some people looked at me with disgust, others with sympathy, but most shared in my embarrassment. They felt embarrassed for me, and as someone who despises pity, this was the worst feeling imaginable. I felt helpless. Normally, I'm the type of person who speaks her mind, but how could I with all these people staring at me? The DJ tried to resume the festivities and wash away the embarrassing moment, but the damage was irreversible. Some people resumed their activities, but I knew the gossip had already started, and this incident would be a hot topic in the family group chat for weeks to come. I did what many others would have done in my situation. I fled. Feeling unwelcome and unloved, I saw Kyle and Hannah arguing off to the side. I seized the opportunity to escape, running inside the house to find the nearest bathroom and lock myself in. I cried for what felt like hours until I heard a knock on the door. It was my loving husband, Kyle. What he said when he saw my red eyes and puffy cheeks shocked me. I swear to God, after today, I'm never speaking to that woman again. "Kyle, you can't say that. She's your mother." "Yeah, and she's also a bully. I can't ever show my face here again. We can go home right now if you want. Just say the word and we're out of here." "No, that would mean I've admitted defeat. What did you say to her?" Kyle went on to explain how he berated her for her insolence and rudeness. Why would she say something like that? We don't even know half the people who are here. I still can't believe she said that. I know, love. I've let her walk all over you for too long. I'm sorry I let it get to this point. We hugged, and I continued crying in his arms. This is why I love him so much. After being conditioned in my childhood to be strong and hide my tears, Kyle was always there to catch them and console me. I pulled away slightly, looking up at the love of my life. His warm brown eyes met mine, and I was struck once again by how much I loved him. I smiled weakly despite my tears, hoping to distract myself from the humiliation. Do you remember how we met? Kyle chuckled. Of course I do. How could I forget such a beautiful day? I laughed too, remembering that fateful day. We were both studying at the university library and ended up fighting over the last available power outlet. We struck up a deep and meaningful conversation, and before we knew it, hours had passed. We exchanged numbers, and the rest, as they say, is history. I love you so much, Kyle. I love you too, Judy, more than anything in this world. If you need us to go home, just let me know. This party is dead anyway after that stupid stunt my mother pulled. Kyle, do you remember when we found out? He nodded, a pained expression crossing his face. We were trying so hard, and I thought maybe I was the infertile one. But finding out it was you who was infertile was somehow even worse for me. I was ready to handle it if it was me, but you're just so perfect. I never expected it to be you. I never wanted that for you. I'm so sorry. I know, babe, it was a tough time for both of us. But we got through it together, and we'll get through this too. Kyle smiled at me, his love shining in his eyes. I knew then that we were in this together, no matter what life threw at us. You should tell her the truth. What? I couldn't possibly do that. I should have just been honest with the family from the start. I did know she harbored this much resentment over us not having kids yet. What's worse, she automatically assumes it's your fault. If I had been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened. Kyle, don't beat yourself up. You know your mother is crazy. She probably would have found another way to humiliate me even if you had been honest. It's fine, babe. I don't mind her hating me, but I can't stand the idea of her not liking you because of your infertility. You know how obsessed she is with continuing this bloodline. That's true. I mean, she did invite 100 people to this thing, which is ridiculous now that I think about it. No, I'm not going to tell her. Wait here. Before I could question where he was going, he let go of me and left the bathroom. Still reeling from the embarrassment, I heeded his words and stayed put. 5 minutes passed. Just when I thought Kyle might have done something stupid, like announcing the truth to everyone, he came back in. Thank goodness. I thought you went to do something stupid. I was about to bust out of here and stop you. You still might try to stop me, but I won't let you. What do you mean? What did you do? I couldn't believe my eyes when Kyle handed me a stack of papers. What are these? My infertility results as well as your high fertility results. I printed them out at the library. My stomach dropped. How could he have done this without telling me? Now he wanted me to show them to Hannah. I couldn't humiliate him like that in front of everyone. I can't do that, Kyle. I told you I wouldn't. I can't just show these to her. But Judy, she humiliated you in front of everyone. She deserves to be put in her place. She'll be embarrassed because of how wrong she was. I know, but I just can't do it. It's not fair to you. I don't care about that. She's the one who should be embarrassed. Being infertile is nothing to be ashamed of, even though it's so heavily frowned upon. There are ways to fix it, and I think I'm ready to face these skeletons head on. We should look at alternative methods of conceiving. I looked up at him, feeling overwhelmed by his love and selflessness. How could he be so willing to sacrifice himself like this? And what's more, it seemed like he was ready to properly face this ailment and take the necessary steps to address his situation. For such a long time, it was a sore subject. But now, as I looked into his loving eyes, I could see the amount of healing and growth he had been through to reach this moment of clarity and compassion. But Kyle, it's not just about that. It's also about the fact that she's never respected me. She's never even tried to get to know me. And now she's making fun of my infertility like it's some kind of joke. Kyle put his arm around me, pulling me closer. I know, Judy, and that's why we have to do this. We have to stand up to her and show her that we won't be pushed around anymore. I looked up at him, feeling grateful for his strength and support. Okay, let's do it. We went outside to greet the crowd. It seemed like everyone had resumed the festivities, but little did they know that more chaos was about to ensue. I gave Kyle one last look, asking silently if he was sure. He confirmed by leading me to the very same DJ booth where I had been humiliated not so long ago. Kyle grabbed the mic and got everyone's attention. Attention, everyone. We have something important to say. People turned their heads toward the booming voice coming through the microphone. Earlier today, my wife was attacked unfairly and quite rudely for no good reason. Now she wants to give her side of the argument. Kyle handed the mic to me. I gulped, recognizing that everyone's attention was now on me. I scanned the crowd and met the glaring eyes of none other than Hannah, who was making her way to the booth. Hello, everyone. As you may or may not know, I'm Kyle's wife and Hannah is my mother-in-law. I need to repeat the harmful words that were. That's enough. Hannah interrupted, but my confidence and anger only amplified. I was sick of her incessant rudeness. You will not interrupt me while I speak. I gave you a chance to speak, and now it's my turn. Shocked and taken off guard by my feistiness, she shut up. Thank you. As I was saying, I need not repeat what was said about me. But I am a lover of truth, and if someone is spreading misinformation about me and my family, even if it's a very personal and private matter, I need to rectify it. Turning to face Hannah squarely, I said, You think that I'm infertile and that I'm unable to conceive a baby? Well, I'll tell you what the real truth is. It's your son Kyle who is infertile. Here are the documents that prove it. Kyle handed over the documents to Hannah, who was visibly shocked. The crowd murmured and gasped all around. I looked at Kyle to make sure he was okay, and he was, even smiling and chuckling at everyone's surprised expressions. But the funniest expression was my mother-in-law's. Silence filled the area, and everyone's attention was drawn to us. Hannah's face turned pale as if I had just slapped her. What are you talking about? This can't be true. Oh, but it is true, and what's more, I am the one who has a high fertility rate. More gasps and murmurs reverberated through the crowd. This scene looked like it was pulled straight out of a movie. I don't even know what to say. Kyle, why didn't you tell me about this? Maybe because I wasn't ready. The topic of infertility can be a sensitive one, and I know you wouldn't have done this to me if I were in that position. But the fact that you blatantly tried to embarrass my wife in front of everyone doesn't sit right with me. I had to set things straight. Kyle, I'm so sorry. Don't say sorry to me. Apologize to Judy. It was as if Kyle had asked her to recite the King James version of the Bible in Latin. She was so hesitant, but Kyle persisted. He even grabbed the mic from me and began to chant, Apologize. He kept chanting it over and over, and slowly but surely, the crowd followed suit, all demanding for Hannah to apologize to me. But because of her pride, even the pressure from a whole mob of family members couldn't sway her. I'll do no such thing. She doesn't deserve it. Even if I was incorrect about the fertility thing, why didn't she just say it? It's her fault for not clearing up the air earlier, and now she wants to embarrass me. People began to boo her like she was a terrible music artist performing a terrible set. Feeling embarrassed on her own property, she ran inside the house, attempting to escape the judgment being passed. The story doesn't end there, though. We resumed the festivities while Hannah spent the rest of the event holed up in her room. Several aunts and uncles made attempts to lure her out, but to no avail. She was stuck in her pride, and it was leaving a sour taste in people's mouths. Nonetheless, we enjoyed the rest of the reunion. Various family members, both known and extended, approached Kyle and me, commending us on our bravery. Some were glad we finally put that woman in her place, while others didn't know the extent of her maliciousness. By the end of the evening, it truly felt like a big happy family reunion, which I was so grateful for. The next day, exhausted and drained, we received a call from one of Kyle's aunts. She said the family had a meeting and agreed they wouldn't include Hannah in any future family events until she apologized. They also recommended we remain distant from her until she could grow up and take accountability. I agreed wholeheartedly. I didn't want to be subjected to her cruel remarks again. While I wasn't surprised by the decision, it still stung to hear that our family was now officially divided due to Hannah's incessant hatred toward me. Kyle and I discussed the situation and agreed it was time to move on. We couldn't keep enabling Hannah's toxic behavior by being bystanders in her abuse, and we needed to protect our mental health. We were already going through so much, and since we wanted to start a new chapter in our lives and build a family of our own, it was time to say goodbye to the drama and focus on building a happy, healthy life together. So we said our goodbyes to Hannah without any regrets or second thoughts. We sent her an email detailing our feelings, and Kyle left her a long voice note telling her that he would love for her to be part of the new life we were trying to build. but he wouldn't allow toxicity and negative energy to be part of it. Unsurprisingly, she never responded. To this day, we haven't heard from her. It turns out she prioritizes her pride so much that she's willing to give up her relationship with her potential grandchildren. Good riddance to bad rubbish, as they say. We didn't need that kind of negativity in our lives anyway, and we were better off without her. But deep down, I couldn't help but feel a twinge of sadness, at least for Kyle. Hannah was still Kyle's mother, after all. I had hoped we could be close one day, but it seemed like that would never happen. I don't know how Hannah is doing now, and I honestly don't care. But what I do know is that I'll never forget that day, and I'll never let anyone make me feel inferior again.
Hello there, I'm Alice, a 32-year-old woman currently 9 months pregnant. Today, my husband and I are driving to his family's home, a mere 30-minute drive from our apartment. It's a short trip, so we often visit 2 or 3 times a month. This time, we're especially excited because my mother-in-law is baking her famous apple pie. My mother-in-law is a sweet lady. After losing her husband last year, she was really down and didn't know what to do. But she's recovered now and is eagerly waiting for the birth of her grandchild. However, not everyone is thrilled about our baby. My sister-in-law, Brianna, is one of them. According to my mother-in-law, Brianna married 6 years before us, but hasn't been able to conceive. She even started fertility treatments 2 years ago, but still no baby. With all the pressure, she's become quite irritable lately. My mother-in-law advised us to avoid Brianna as much as possible, so we usually visit when she's not around. But today, to our surprise, Brianna showed up unexpectedly. Well, long time no see, Alice. You've put on some weight, haven't you? You're not just lazing around at home because you're pregnant, right? You look like a seal, all round and ready to roll down a hill, she said sharply. I was dumbfounded by her immediate and harsh remark. Hey sis, how can you say something like that right off the bat? She's 9 months pregnant. Of course, her belly's going to be big. You're going to make enemies with pregnant women all over the world talking like that. My husband quickly jumped to my defense, leaving me speechless. Oh please, I'm just thinking about Alice. It's tough if a pregnant woman gets too heavy, you know. I just want Alice to be aware of her responsibilities as a mother, Brianna claimed, pretending to be concerned. I knew arguing back would only cause more problems. Thank you, sister-in-law. Yes, you're right. I should be more careful. I chose non-confrontational words, but she huffed and said, just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you can be lazy. Start cleaning this house right now. You're lacking exercise, right? You can at least do that much. She handed me a broom and dustpan, demanding I clean. However, after being scolded by my mother-in-law and my husband for harassing me, Brianna sulked and secluded herself in an upstairs room. I'm sorry, Alice. She just showed up all of a sudden. I told her to leave. My mother-in-law apologized with a regretful look on her face. It's fine, mother-in-law. I'm not bothered, I reassured her. I'm sorry, Alice. That's just how my sister is, my husband added. Despite the tension, we spent a pleasant time together, enjoying the apple pie and sipping tea. We called out to Brianna, but there was no response. Although we were worried, she never came down in the end. However, I had no idea that a shocking incident would occur just a few days later. I went to my in-laws' house alone to speak with my mother-in-law. As I wondered why the front door was unlocked, I discovered Brianna in the living room. Sister-in-law, what brings you here? I heard from mother-in-law that you had to work today, I said, surprised. I wasn't in the mood, so I took the day off. I was surprised to see you here. You disrupted my cleaning last time. Now please get back to work, she said, thrusting the broom and dustpan back at me. To avoid any trouble, I decided to clean as much as I could. But that day, I was feeling discomfort from early morning, and during the cleaning, I began to feel pain in my stomach. Just as I thought of taking a short break, Brianna kicked my stomach, causing my water to break. The pain escalated, and I fell to the floor. Ah, it hurts. Somebody, please help. I cried out. taking my mobile phone from my pocket and quickly dialing my mother-in-law. "The baby is in trouble," I managed to say before losing consciousness. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital bed with an IV in my arm and my body wrapped in an electric blanket. Where am I? What about my baby? I tried to sit up, but the pain in my abdomen stopped me. My stomach, which was supposed to be large, had shrunk, and I was shocked. I pressed the nurse call button, and when the nurse arrived, I asked what had happened. Apparently, my water had broken, and I had to give birth via emergency cesarean. The baby was small and in an incubator but was in good health. My mother-in-law and husband, who had rushed to the hospital, were informed by the doctor. Their faces were red with anger. I decided to visit the baby once I felt better and tried to sleep as much as possible to recover quickly. However, the next day, an unbelievable pair showed up in my hospital room. My sister-in-law, who had kicked me, and her husband. They entered without knocking, their impudence making me frown. When they suggested, "We'll pay you, let's settle this," I felt a chill run down my spine. When I refused, they lashed out at me with every offensive word they could think of, directed at my tired face, still recovering from the cesarean operation. Thinking about how my daughter had to go through such an ordeal because of these people, something inside me snapped. "A settlement? Are you kidding me? You must be joking. I'll ruin your life," I declared, my voice shaking with anger. Enraged by my words, they continued shouting. "What are you saying? We're offering a solution with money. Aren't you thankful, Alice? Didn't your parents teach you to obey your elders? We're telling you to settle, so just agree quietly," my brother-in-law added, joining in the argument. Forgetting it was a hospital room, our voices escalated until the door suddenly swung open. "I've heard everything. I'm sorry, but I have absolutely no intention of settling." My husband, tall and imposing, stood at the door, his deep voice resonating through the room. The two who had been so confident moments before were now taken aback. "Ah, long time no see, Finn. It's a coincidence to meet you here," my brother-in-law stammered, his face tense. "It truly is a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here, nor did I expect to hear such words from you. I would appreciate an explanation. We were all in the room when you said it, so there's no room for any excuses," my husband responded, his fury barely contained. "Don't be so angry, Finn. It's not like we had ill intentions. We just feel bad for what we did to Alice. That's why we're offering money, hoping to settle this out of court," my sister-in-law explained, her voice trembling. But my husband's fury didn't subside. "The one who decides whether this will be a settlement or not is Alice, not you. Besides, do you think this is a situation that can be solved with money? Alice had an emergency C-section, and the baby is in an incubator. You endangered both their lives. Do you even understand that?" My husband exploded, his emotions getting the best of him. I also couldn't forgive them just because they were throwing money at us. I agree with my husband. No amount of money can make this right. You will face the consequences of your actions, I said firmly. It seemed like my sister-in-law assumed that throwing money at us would make us forgive them, but this situation was far more serious. Thankfully, both my daughter and I were fine, though she was in an incubator. Had there been any mistake, the outcome could have been much worse. My sister-in-law seemed entirely oblivious to this reality, and I suspected my brother-in-law felt the same. At my words, my sister-in-law flared up and raised her voice. "What do you mean? This is all because of her. She knew I couldn't get pregnant, and yet kept rubbing her belly in front of me." "Was that a jab at me?" she shouted, her face red with fury. "I was furious. That's why you did what you did. To make sure I never do anything like that again. How ridiculous. I hadn't met you often since I got pregnant, and every time you saw me, you would go into your room and not come out. So how did you see me rubbing my belly?" I retorted, incredulous at her excuse. No matter what she said, it wouldn't erase what she had done. "I understand that you're struggling, but that doesn't justify doing something like this to Alice. No matter the reason, endangering a life is never acceptable," my husband explained, stating the obvious. But they both looked elsewhere, not even trying to listen to us. It seemed like they wanted to get this over with as soon as possible. Seeing the two of them show no remorse, I felt my condition worsen. Are we done here? I just had surgery and I'm not feeling well. If you continue to cause a ruckus, I'll call the police, I warned. Arguing wasn't going to resolve anything, and dealing with them was too much for me while I was still recovering. After my husband kicked them out, I sighed heavily. Fortunately, my husband had recorded their conversation, giving us solid evidence. My mother-in-law was furious about what her daughter had done, endangering my life and her grandchild's. We decided to press charges against my sister-in-law. We filed a complaint with the police, and my sister-in-law was taken to the station. Through a lawyer, we began negotiations, but my sister-in-law insisted I'd done nothing wrong. This woman has been flaunting her pregnancy in front of me, causing me emotional distress while I struggle with infertility. She's not innocent either, so she should be open to a settlement. At first, she was eager to pay any amount, but then she began claiming her innocence, suggesting we both were at fault. She had been intimidated by my husband at the hospital, but now, determined to avoid paying, she put up a stubborn fight. However, she had no idea that our conversation in the hospital room had been recorded. When the evidence was presented, both their faces turned ashen. Even with such clear evidence, you still claim you're innocent? I'm afraid that won't fly, my husband said firmly. After enduring their insults and refusing to agree to a settlement, my sister-in-law, in anger, flung a cup of cold coffee at us. Thankfully, it was cold, so we weren't burned. Their outrageous behavior and language resulted in additional charges, forcing them to increase the compensation amounts. Trying to calm his infuriated wife, my brother-in-law left the office with her. Given the assault charges and their behavior, the amount we demanded became substantial. When we told my mother-in-law what had happened, she looked deeply remorseful. I'm so sorry for what my daughter has done. There's no need for you to agree to a settlement. I'll make sure she faces the consequences, she apologized tearfully. I couldn't help but feel incredibly sorry for her. In the end, my sister-in-law was ordered to pay hefty compensation. Shocked by the amount, she called me repeatedly, insisting we reduce the amount because we were both at fault. I couldn't comprehend how she could argue this after all she had done. No matter how many times you call, the answer remains the same. We have no intention of reducing the amount or agreeing to a settlement. Honestly, your calls are becoming a nuisance. Please stop, I snapped at her. This caused her to lose her temper, and unbelievably, she barged into my apartment. Hey, you're there, right? I know you're in there. Get out here now, coward, she shouted, pounding on the door. I was resting on the sofa, still in pain from my surgery. What on earth are you doing? Is everything okay with you? Your shouting is disturbing everyone else. Please stop, I yelled back, but she continued to bang on the door. It was past 8 p.m., and there were elderly people and families with babies in the apartment. Of course, my husband was still at work and hadn't returned home. Since I got discharged from the hospital, I had been visiting my daughter every day, feeling unwell and now dealing with my sister-in-law's unannounced visit. I was at my wit's end. No matter how many times you come here, my mind won't change. Please don't come here anymore, I said, fighting back despite feeling unwell and pale. But my sister-in-law was desperate for a settlement, ignoring my concerns. I didn't do this because I wanted to, you know. It's because of your intrusions that things have come to this. It's presumptuous of you to get pregnant before me. Shouldn't you have been more considerate and waited to get pregnant after us? She ranted. It seemed she saw pregnancy as some sort of competition. I don't think pregnancy is a competition or that it's more honorable to get pregnant first. But for my sister-in-law, who has struggled with infertility for many years, it seemed like she viewed pregnancy that way. Everyone has different values, I thought, exhausted by the ordeal. But that's no excuse to hurt others. I understand you're upset about not being able to have children, but that's no reason to hurt anyone. I cannot forgive you for putting my daughter in danger. For that, you will be held responsible. Above everything else, the fact that she had endangered my daughter was unforgivable. Just then, the sound of sirens could be heard outside. It seemed someone in the apartment had reported the disturbance. Well, I suppose if you're banging on someone's door and yelling at this hour, it's inevitable that the police would be called. What do you mean the police are here? Open the door. You have to hide me, my sister-in-law pleaded. Despite her pleas, I had no intention of hiding her. The police arrived at the apartment and began questioning her. I explained the situation from my perspective. Just at that moment, my husband returned home, and I filled him in on what had happened. Considering everything that had transpired, my husband told the police everything, and they took my sister-in-law away. That night, my brother-in-law called to tell me he was divorcing my sister-in-law and asked me not to involve him in the issue, a rather self-serving request. Apparently, one of my husband's colleagues had been at the hospital where I was admitted and overheard my brother-in-law's conversation. When he got to work, gossip spread among the female employees, and my brother-in-law was looked down upon. The situation worsened, and somehow the story reached the HR department. Realizing he couldn't talk his way out of it, he confessed everything. He was then told that someone like him couldn't stay at the company and was being transferred to a regional office. I can't deal with her issues anymore. If any more problems arise, I'll be fired. So please leave me out of it, he said before hanging up. I haven't heard from him since. Afterward, we received substantial compensation from my sister-in-law. To ensure she would never come near us again, we changed our phone numbers and moved away. Even if she ran out of money and needed help, she wouldn't know where to find us. A few months later, my daughter was discharged from the hospital. She didn't have any lingering effects and was growing up healthy. Rumor has it that my sister-in-law was in substantial debt. At first, she moved from friend to friend, but she never contributed to living expenses and stayed too long, so they kicked her out. Now, with no place to live and no money, she is working part-time to pay off her debt. Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine, and this is my story. I want to share an experience involving my soon-to-be ex-husband and my mother-in-law. The betrayal and lies still haunt me, and I need to get this off my chest. I've seen many posts about people dealing with horrible mothers-in-law and their equally terrible sons. I faced a similar situation. When I married my husband, Tom, I had no idea he was a mama's boy. His mother, Vera, had been extremely close to him since childhood. He was raised to believe that his mother always came first. I didn't mind that Tom was close to his mother, but Vera's hold over him suffocated me. After we got married, Tom often said, "Even though you're my wife, my mom is still a priority. I hope you understand that, Jasmine. I don't want you to think otherwise." I replied, "As long as you respect and value me as well. I have no problem with your closeness to Vera. You are her son after all. Thank you for understanding, Jasmine. I hope we won't have problems with this in the future." Tom wasn't joking when he said Vera was his priority. As the years went by, it became clear that Vera held an even higher position than me. Tom had a good job, but spent half his income on her. Vera refused to work and insisted on living off her son's money. I had to put more money into our household accounts to make ends meet. When I talked to Tom about this, he responded angrily, "How dare you bring this up, Jasmine? I already told you my mom is a priority. Why are you creating trouble about this? Do you want my mom to starve?" "I never said that, Tom. You're just giving her more money than necessary. I've tolerated it for years, but you need to stop. That will never happen. I have a responsibility towards her, and I will send her whatever money I please. Stay out of this." I knew I was fighting a losing battle. We had many fights about Vera, and it didn't help that Vera hated me and insulted me at every opportunity. Tom was the only one invited to her house for Christmas. I was never allowed. Tom had nothing to say about this and always left me alone to celebrate with Vera. Things didn't improve even after we had a child. Our son, Ethan, was also boycotted from Vera's house because he was my child. He craved his grandmother's love when he was young, but Vera only had insults for him. Tom never protested and told us to deal with it. Eventually, Ethan and I both gave up trying to please Vera. I didn't want Ethan to grow up with divorced parents, so I stayed. However, I later realized my mistake. One day, when Ethan was about 12 years old, Tom sat me down and said, "I've quit my job, Jasmine. Today was my last day. I've been thinking about leaving for a while, and I think it's time." "What? Why didn't you discuss this with me? Do you have any jobs lined up?" "No, I won't be returning to work anytime soon. I feel burnt out and need some rest. You earn enough to support us, so that won't be an issue. By the way, I hope you know that Mum will be moving in with us. You need to take care of her as well." Hello everyone, I'm Jasmine, and this is my story. I want to share an experience involving my soon-to-be ex-husband and my mother-in-law. The betrayal and lies still haunt me, and I need to get this off my chest. I've seen many posts about people dealing with horrible mothers-in-law and their equally terrible sons. I faced something similar. When I married my husband Tom, I had no idea he was a big mama's boy. His mother, Vera, had been extremely close to him since childhood. He was raised to believe that his mother always came first. I didn't mind that Tom was close to his mother, but Vera's hold over him suffocated me. After we got married, Tom often said, "Even though you're my wife, my mom is still a priority. I hope you understand that, Jasmine. I don't want you to think otherwise." I replied, "As long as you respect and value me as well, I have no problem with your closeness to Vera. You are her son, after all." Thank you for understanding, Jasmine. I hope we won't have problems with this in the future. Tom wasn't joking when he said Vera was his priority. As the years went by, it became clear that Vera held an even higher position than me. Tom had a good job but spent half his income on her. Vera refused to work and insisted on living off her son's money. I had to put more money into our household accounts to make ends meet. When I talked to Tom about this, he responded angrily, "How dare you bring this up, Jasmine? I already told you my mom is a priority. Why are you creating trouble about this? Do you want my mom to starve?" "I never said that, Tom. You're just giving her more money than necessary. I've tolerated it for years, but you need to stop. That will never happen. I have a responsibility towards her, and I will send her whatever money I please. Stay out of this." I knew I was fighting a losing battle. We had many fights about Vera, and it didn't help that Vera hated me and insulted me at every opportunity. Tom was the only one invited to her house for Christmas. I was never allowed. Tom had nothing to say about this and always left me alone to celebrate with Vera. Things didn't improve even after we had a child. Our son, Ethan, was also boycotted from Vera's house because he was my child. He craved his grandmother's love when he was young, but Vera only had insults for him. Tom never protested and told us to deal with it. Eventually, Ethan and I both gave up trying to please Vera. I didn't want Ethan to grow up with divorced parents, so I stayed. However, I later realized my mistake. One day, when Ethan was about 12 years old, Tom sat me down and said, "I've quit my job, Jasmine. Today was my last day. I've been thinking about leaving for a while, and I think it's time." "What? Why didn't you discuss this with me? Do you have any jobs lined up?" "No, I won't be returning to work anytime soon. I feel burnt out and need some rest. You earn enough to support us, so that won't be an issue. By the way, I hope you know that Mum will be moving in with us. You need to take care of her as well." "I have to take care of Mum all day. I don't have time for your chores. Those are your responsibilities, not mine. Make Ethan work with you." I couldn't believe the audacity of Tom. Ethan was already helping me with all the chores despite having his schoolwork. We were both exhausted from serving Tom and Vera, yet Tom never helped out. Vera complained all day long and refused to do even basic tasks she was perfectly capable of doing. I was tired of working for them. My bank account was empty, and I had very little savings left. Still, I held myself together because I felt sorry for Vera and Tom. Well, It turns out I was being played for a fool. One day, Ethan approached me when Tom and Vera were not around. He said there was something he needed to talk about. Mom, why does Grandma still use a wheelchair? She isn't sick anymore. Why does she need it even now? Your grandma is still paralyzed, Ethan. This means she cannot move without the wheelchair. Unfortunately, she hasn't gotten any better. But I see Grandma walking every morning. I thought she had recovered. Why are you saying she can't walk? What do you mean, Ethan? Vera is paralyzed from the waist down. She can't walk, son. You must have mixed it up. No, Mom, it was her. When I asked her how she can walk, she just shushed me and ignored me. She even told me not to tell you. I was immediately alarmed. I had a nagging suspicion that something wasn't right. But without any proof, confronting Vera was out of the question. Now, my son had given me some grave news. I was starting to get very angry, but I needed more information and proof. So I said, "Do you have any proof by any chance?" "I need more proof, Ethan." "Yes, I do, Mom. I took a video with my phone. Do you want to see it?" "Show me the video, Ethan. I need to see it right now." Ethan was right. His video did catch Vera walking in the hallways. I was shocked and couldn't believe my eyes. What was even more shocking was that Tom saw her walking and didn't seem surprised. In fact, he even walked up to her, and they laughed about something in the hallway. I was absolutely furious. They have been fooling me for 6 months. I immediately saved the footage on my phone and waited to confront them. The next day, when I returned from work, I saw that Tom and Vera were casually talking in the living room. I was enraged but kept my cool. It was time to confront them. I sat down beside them and said, "There is something I need to talk to you both about." "What is it, Jasmine?" "Tell us now," Tom said. "Why did you two lie to me about Vera's condition? I know she's not paralyzed and can walk just fine. So tell me, why did you do this?" "What are you talking about, Jasmine? This is ridiculous. You know Mom is paralyzed. Are you accusing her of faking it?" Tom replied. "How dare you accuse me of faking it? You're such a witch, Jasmine. I was right about you all along. You are a heartless woman," Vera added. "Don't lie to me, you two. I have ample proof that Vera can walk. I've seen it with my own eyes, and I also know you know about this, Tom." "This is ridiculous, Jasmine. How can you accuse us like this? I didn't expect this from you. Stop being such a cruel person and making up lies about us," Tom said. "Well, I'm not making things up, Tom. As I said, I have proof. Since you won't accept it, I'll show you. Here, watch this." I took out my phone and showed them the footage. They both turned pale, their eyes bulging out of their sockets in shock and fear. When the video ended, I calmly put down my phone and said, "Now that I've shown you the proof, tell me why you have been lying to me. I want an answer." "Well, Mom was really paralyzed, Jasmine. She only recovered recently. We've been keeping it a secret. We actually wanted to surprise you," Tom stammered. Yes, it's true. I needed time to feel like I could walk normally. We wanted to wait and tell you the news when we were sure." Vera added hastily, "Nice story you've got there, guys. However, I don't believe you one bit. If you want to prove yourselves, I need to see your doctor's certificates. Only then will I accept your words." Tom and Vera looked visibly anxious and started to mutter nonsense about not having a note at the moment. When it became apparent that they had no proof of Vera's disability, I said, "That's it. Now I know everything I needed to know. Since you two can't give me proof, I won't be taking care of you. I want you both out of the house next month. And Tom, I am filing for divorce." "Jasmine, you're overreacting. You don't have to be so drastic in your decisions. We only lied to you because Mom had nowhere to go," Tom pleaded. "Yes, this is all your fault. You were financially abusing my son by not letting him take me in. We had no other choice than to cook up this story. If you had been a little less selfish, we wouldn't have lied to you," Vera insisted. "Don't you dare put this on me. Your worthless son wanted to be a parasite. I accepted because he is my husband and I loved him. Then he expected me to take you in as well. You are not entitled to my money. You had no right to exploit me like this. Vera and Tom turned on me, calling me names and insisting that it was all my fault and they didn't deserve to be kicked out. Tom also said that he was entitled to my money, and so was his mother. All their talk made my blood boil. By the time they were done, I had already made my decision. Enough is enough. I've heard everything I needed to hear. I thought I would kick Vera out and file for separation from you, Tom. But now I'm going for a divorce. You have no right to be my husband. I won't stay with you any longer, and don't even think about taking Ethan. He will stay with me. You can't divorce me, Jasmine. If you leave me, you will have to give me alimony. I will also get half of your savings. I'll keep Ethan and take child support from you. That will teach you a lesson. You have some wild imagination, Tom. First of all, I have already depleted most of my savings on your mother, so you won't have much to claim anyway. Secondly, the judge won't grant you alimony since you quit your job without consulting me. I'll just say that I recorded our entire conversation, so the judge will know you want Ethan's custody only for child support. No, that can't happen. I'll make sure I bleed you dry. Mom and I didn't go through so much drama for nothing. I will take your money. Just you wait, Tom shouted. Tom and Vera kept blowing up at me and threatening me with things. They were so foolish that they forgot the part where I said I had recorded everything. From all the stories I heard, I knew that recording conversations could be crucial in court cases, so I made sure to document everything. After some time, I left them and went to my room. The next day, Tom and Vera tried to act as if nothing had happened. They even started being overly sweet, with Tom attempting to hug me in the morning. I ignored them and went about my day. I met with 2 lawyers to discuss divorce and eviction, and after finalizing everything, I went home. For some odd reason, Vera still used the wheelchair in front of me, and Tom continued the charade, hoping I would be fooled again. I sent Ethan to my sister's house to ensure his safety, as I was concerned that Tom might try to intimidate him. I stayed back because the house was mine, and I didn't want them to ruin it. A week later, I served Tom and Vera with eviction papers. I'd also served Tom divorce papers since there was no way I was staying with them. When they saw the notices, they completely freaked out. Jasmine, how can you do this to us? I don't deserve this treatment from you. This has to be a joke. I can't believe you would kick out a disabled woman. My son only wanted to take care of me. You are punishing him for nothing, Vera cried. I think we've already established that you are not disabled, Vera. There is no point in keeping up this charade. Even if I'm not disabled, I am old. You should not kick out an old person. God is watching. Well, God also saw how the 2 of you manipulated me and bled me dry. Now it's time for me to take my revenge. As for Tom, he has been a poor excuse for a husband and father. I stayed with him for Ethan's sake, but not anymore. Tom and Vera tried several times to change my mind, but I never wavered. I invited my sister over with Ethan so that he could be at home. Tom and Vera became desperate, seeking my forgiveness. I knew that Tom's poor financial decisions had left him with no savings, so hiring a lawyer and fighting me in court would be impossible. Vera didn't work and had no money of her own, so they were both stuck in a deep pit of financial crisis. They feasted on my income, forgetting that I don't take manipulation lightly. Ethan, though a teen, was smart enough to figure out what was going on. He started keeping his distance from Tom and Vera. Their constant shouting didn't help either. They berated him, saying, "You little crap. This is all your fault. I told you to keep your mouth shut. Does it feel good to have your dad kicked out, Ethan? Is this making you happy? Dad and Grandma will be out on the streets while you stay comfortable with your mom. How does that make you feel?" "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't want to keep Mom in the dark, so I told her everything. I didn't know she would leave you." "Shut up, Ethan. You are nothing but a useless child. I wish I never had you. If I didn't have you, I would remain married and stay in this house. You are responsible for our condition. Stop this right now." You have some audacity to scold and berate Ethan when he did the right thing. How can you speak to your child like that? I was fuming at Tom and Vera's behavior towards Ethan. It broke my heart to see him so scared. I threatened to call the cops if they continued to abuse him, which shut them up quickly. Later, these incidents actually helped me gain full custody of Ethan. Once the month ended, I promptly kicked Tom and Vera out. They threw tantrums until I called the police, who escorted them out of my house. Finally, Ethan and I were able to breathe in our own home. In the weeks that followed, my lawyers tried to convince Tom to sign the divorce papers. I even offered him some money if he agreed. Since he was nearly homeless and had no money, he begrudgingly agreed. I did lose some money, but I see that as a win. The custody agreements were smooth. I got full custody because Tom was in no position to house Ethan. Even if he got a job and demanded split custody, I knew Ethan would speak against him. He was still very shaken and is seeing a therapist. I attend the sessions with him so he doesn't feel alone. My sister is also living with us to help out. We are being cautious in case Tom and Vera try anything. From what I've heard, Tom and Vera had nasty fights after I kicked them out. Tom came crying at my door 2 weeks after being evicted, which is when I convinced him to sign the divorce papers. Apparently, Vera turned on Tom and demanded he get a job to support her. When Tom refused, she threw the worst tantrums ever. According to Tom, this made him realize what an idiot he had been. I didn't feel anything for him. I simply offered the money and asked for his signature. By then, Tom knew there was no coming back. I have no idea where Vera is now, but we are being careful. Meanwhile, Ethan and I are trying to move past this fiasco and start fresh.